Hello, everybody. Welcome to F50 Global Summit Austin 2021. My name is Wen Zhan. I am really excited to welcome today's special speaker, Lei Dai, with us today. Lei, she is an entrepreneur, investor, professor, venture capitalist, chairman, and board director. Lei is a partner at LDV Partners, a deep tech Silicon Valley VC firm leading investment in AI, big data, and computing. She's also adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon University. For the past 20 years, Lei has led product and engineering teams globally, including Alibaba, Apple, and Yahoo. She is recognized expert in several areas from search engine, app platform, data analytics, mobile platform, and application. She holds 7 US patents in all those areas. I am really excited. Thank you so much, Lei, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I realized my bio is giving away my age. All right. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I've been a long-term friend of F50, and then very excited to have this opportunity to be a guest and then share with everybody my journey.
Incredible. And Lei, thank you so much for being here. And your experience, you sounds like you are so passionate about AI. I'm just curious to start off, what made you so passionate about AI and what made you curious?
Yeah, so well, I'm always interested in the new technology that I think that would completely change the world, right? So so this is actually go back to even in the 90s, and when I first tried the internet product, right? So email and then messenger, and then I realized that's the big thing. So I decided to devote myself to the internet industry, and then I move on to mobile. And I really think AI technology and potentially also blockchain technology is going to be the next big wave. Not exactly the same, but they are going to penetrate in many, many different industries, many, many use cases. And it's tremendous opportunities and very exciting technology. Yeah.
Incredible. Well, speaking about exciting technology, is there a recent trend that you've been seeing regarding investing in the AI world that you can share?
Okay. Yeah. So looking to the before we look into the investment trend, let's look into why AI has been so hot in the last few years. So to just give out everyone some background information, AI, even though it sounds like a very new term, it actually started in the 1950s, artificial intelligence. And I have friends who are in their 70s and they said they were majoring in AI. So it's not a new thing, but why it has been so impactful in the last few years is really due to the revolution on 3 elements. The one is data, right? So giving internet, giving mobile technology, giving the innovations in sensors. Right now, we have so much more data than we used to have. Everyone's contributing data. We're recording here, we're contributing voice information, we're contributing our video, right? Which, every minute is so many different frames. So much data is available for you to compute. Then the second part is computation, right? Mm-hmm. So GPU is revolutionary. GPU by NVIDIA really accelerate the computing power. And that's also the reason if you look into NVIDIA's stock, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, it's probably ended somewhere between $40 to $60. And today is over $700, right? There's so much more that actually can be added to the computing capability. And we're not even talk about the ongoing revolution in inference in addition to training. The last element is algorithm. So as some of you probably very familiar, OpenAI, for example, their technology enable so many different new use cases through natural language technology. So you can let AI to write paragraph for you. You can let AI write the marketing campaign for you. And it's sometimes not too much off. So all of these 3 things are contributing to the fast acceleration of AI technology. So if you think from that perspective, then are the important elements of investment opportunities, right? So let's peel the onion, look into the three elements. First of all, data. Okay, so just because we have so much data, does that mean data are usable? The answer is no. So currently, roughly about 80 to 90% of data the enterprise collected are not usable. The reasons some are, number one, or many of them unstructured data versus structured data, which is very difficult to understand. And number two is that there are a lot of duplicate data, right? So how do we consolidate it, normalize it? And the number three is that, does all the data have insight? So for data science, we always say garbage in, garbage out, right? So will all the data that actually give you the right insight? So as you can see that part of the reason, you can say skill AI and label box, all this label annotation company, annotation companies receive so much funding and very high evaluation is also indicated there's so much market demand to make the data from just reachable to insightful, right? So that's a big part of it right now. So data strategy and how what kind of software, what kind of annotation to accelerate the process. And then once you have all the data that you understand what you can, what kind of clean data and usable data, and move them to compute, and then you can see that there are also opportunities out there, right? So even though NVIDIA currently is absolutely the leader in the space for GPU and in learning as well, but doesn't mean that there are no opportunities for other chip developers. So particularly, for example, inference chips. Inference chips, think about if training is the brain that learning everything's happening, and inference is the one that tells you, yes, this is this, and this is this. That's very binary decision sometimes, right? And the inference chip sometimes needs to be installed into, we can say, IoT devices and other edge devices. Can be on the cell phone, can be drone, can be the smart home devices. And what does it mean? It means that sometimes, one, they need to be smaller. Number two, power efficient. Number three, that can be cheap enough, right? So you can have a smart camera. You pay $20 for this camera, and you may have inference chips in there too, right? So all the things that is continue give a very strong, I would say, if you think of product requirement, those are the product requirement in the market, and there's so many startups working on it right now. So the last one, algorithm. Algorithm is, there are a lot of innovations in how we create different models. And we cannot say, there's just only general models. There are so many different models that are designed for specific application, designed and optimized for it. So that's the other elements is that in addition to, data, compute, and algorithm, there are also, if you think about that as a fundamental platform, there are also vertical applications, right? So many different opportunities. Vertical applications, AI in, for example, in retail, AI in manufacturing, AI in fintech, AI in, for example, in healthcare. All of them are pretty large sectors. So all the four just talk about retail, manufacturing, finance, and healthcare. Combined, the enterprise spending is roughly about over 50% of all the AI spendings currently, right? And there are many other like energy sectors, right? There are gaming, there are consumer applications, all the things. So going back to your previous question, why I'm so excited, because you see a lot of possibilities, right? So everything that we're using right now there are some elements into it. You can leverage AI, machine learning or deep learning, and whatever it is that to make it a little better. So one secret that I can share right now is that we're on Zoom, right? Mm-hmm. So Zoom can do many things, including make toning our skin. right? If you want to. So there, they can do toning the main character's skin tones, but also background, right? So I am not at home. This is a virtual background. But in order to understand it, you have to understand the object and the location, right? So where's my hair, right? You can see my hair is a little cut off over here, right? So that is a little slight challenge, and maybe a little more optimization in the future, is that how do you identify the object, how you carve out, and you can replace different background. And that's, you can use the same use cases for VR and AR in the future. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And speaking of use case, I'm curious, like, what's your perspective on, looking forward for the industry for the next 10 years? What other verticals or sector that you think will be most influenced by adopting AI technology?
So first of all, it's hard to predict anything in 10 years, right? In the academic world, yes, we can do that, but in the industry, it's a little challenging because things moving so fast, right? But I can speak with confidence that it will be very hard for me to believe that there will be one industry that completely can get away without any of artificial intelligence element into it. Very difficult to do unless you really don't want any optimization or help. And it's not as a dramatic as people think, right? So as I mentioned earlier, that we're speaking on a call, there's Zoom, right? You pick up your phone, you use voice to text, that AI technology. You're writing an email, there's a recommendation, that's also AI technology, in particular natural language processing, right? So and then you have a Ring camera in the front your house, and that's computer vision, right? We're going to be we'll be driven by autonomous cars, and that's computer vision, right? So there are so many different elements to it. Computer vision is only one part of it, and there are so many things. Have to recognize the road, and you have to optimize what's the best route. So it's already blended in our life. We just did not really point out, okay, this is AI, this is AI, this is AI, right? It's happening today already. It's just going to be at larger scale going forward.
And with the booming of AI technology, my next question is about ethics, because we see regulation are behind technology for several years, right? So with that, do you see any risk possibly associated with company that adopt AI so quickly going forward?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is my favorite question to answer. So this is always going to be a delay on the regulations, because the government needs to understand what is AI, what's the impact of it, and how I can regulate it, right? So what's the impact of the regulation? So the first step is to understand it, and there are a lot of challenges today. So I'm going to speak on two areas. So one is which I spoke pretty frequently and vocal about, is the data privacy, right? As we talked about earlier, even though with GDPR in the Europe and then some of the regulation policy in the US, we're still behind. So how much information, let's say the cell phone operators or operating system should collect from you? How much browser should collect? You download an app, for example, a parking lot app. Do they always need to know your location when you're not parking? So there are many user permissions that consumers are not aware of. You're not going to download an app and read 20 pages contract. You're not trained to do that, right? But what has been included, is that reasonable or not reasonable? Is there a blanket safeguard somewhere to protect overall the consumers? So that's number one, right? Number two is that for enterprise, do they really need to collect so much information, right? So as I mentioned earlier, there are existing data shows. So I think this is probably about 2 years or a year ago, IDG and Seagate published research shows that about 68 of the data the enterprise acquired, they were not used frequently or not used, touched at all, right? Because you know where the data is stored, right? If they're not retrieved often, then why do you need that data? Do you even use that data? Just because everyone say data is king, do you need to use all the data? All the data are useful for your decision. When you train a model, for example, in healthcare, if you're trained particularly for specific disease, that why would you know some other information has no impact of that decision? Can we mask that information? We can today, right? But how do you manage in a systematic way? Now, you know, if you only put on one startup to make that rational, ethical decision is not enough. So we need a lot more involvement, not only just government, also nonprofit as well, you know, industry association. So that's one, my point of view on data. We have to, as technology innovator, we have to figure out how can we, while the government regulators try to work on their angle, how do we figure out, is there a more efficient model to do training, reach the right result without that much data, right? So one typical example is everyone's talking about deep learning, right? We need to run large neural net, but sometimes not always the best, right? So you're going to use a lot of data, a lot of computing power, but the result may not be as good. It really depends on what outcome you're looking for, right? Sometimes supervised learning works just fine. Sometimes regression model works just fine. So, so those are one example. The other example, in addition to data, which I already touched a little bit, is the modeling, right? So, so do we always train our own model? Are we going to share more and more templates going forward that people can leverage, right? So data sharing, model sharing, and also create a more efficient model. And that's also the other thing I think would be helpful as well.
Incredible. And you know, in the last part of the question, you know, I have a question regarding your investment strategy, right? As an AI expert, I'm curious, what's your investment strategy regarding, you know, AI technology, and also for founders, for startups who in the field, right? What advice you have, you know, for them who maybe wanted to be part of your incredible organization?
Yeah, well, investment strategy, first of all, well, I think instead of speaking just on behalf of our fund, I can speak in general. Many other funds are looking for it. I think it'll be more helpful to the founders. So when the founders try to fundraise, you do want to talk to the VCs that are red match, which is really difficult to define. So how do you define a good match? It's not only about the branding. It's not about how much money they have raised of the fund, but also you have to look into their conviction, right? So what's your conviction? What's your investment thesis? And what's most important to you? What's the check size? What's the stage? And then what's the current stage of the fund? If you're the late stage of the fund, you probably don't have, you know, run out of powder. Could be a possibility, right? So the beginning of the new fund is always, you know, the fund tends to talk to entrepreneur a lot more. Then AI investment strategy for the funds I've been working with, I'll say there are almost like a matchmaking. You're always going to find someone that is actually right for you, right? So some are really interested in, for example, as I mentioned, hardware and inference chips, right? We love the hardware component. Some love IoT elements. Some are only like software. Some are only like large scale, for example. I like I want to invest in the next OpenAI. And then someone will say, okay, I want industry applications because I want the team not only have technology, but also deep understanding of the business of the industry. Then you can have much stronger barrier, right, for entrance. So every fund has that preference. So get this right is very important. And then one recommendation is that do your research not only on the website, but also look into some of the webinars they've been talking to, and look into what kind of portfolio they have invested, whether you can figure out some general preference. So for me, I think I always like the team not only strong in technology, but also have very strong business side as well. You can say business, you can say product, because at the end of the day, the technology is used to create a product. The product is to serve one group or multiple groups to solve certain issues, right? That certain issue needs to be a real pain point that represent good size of the market, and particularly continue to grow, that give you the right size of the market opportunity. So I think being in Silicon Valley, many of the founding teams at the very beginning, very much like when I was in my 20s, building a startup, we think technology alone rule the world. We didn't say that, but fundamentally, I'm so proud of our technology and want to make use of it, right? But the right way thinking is that technology is to support, to create a product, actually really solve important problem and large enough problem. So I think that's something I would love to see from the startup context.
Incredible. Wow. Thank you so much, Lei, for your insight. That's really, really incredible. Thank you again.
Thank you and good luck.